The reason I got in politics was I was a big pro-life guy. I remember going to D.C. and seeing some of my favorite people, elected members of Congress, speak at a breakfast, and I kind of fell in love with the movement. I fell, this was before any kind of political campaign I was on, but I figured that was a place to actually get something done in this world. So I really went into it with the right reasons. My days, wouldn't really get up early because I was probably too hungover from the night before. I would be at the office late, and then I'd be lying to my wife saying I'd stay later, and then I'd probably go out drinking by myself most nights and just kind of sit there and dull the pain with alcohol, and that certainly is no way to live. Like when I started acting that way, I always felt like I would get my way back. I would make the world right by getting this big win. Everything would be fine after that, and that was just such a lie.
So Jamie hired me, my first real job out of college, back in 2008.
I didn't like her at all. I thought she gave a terrible interview. I didn't want to hire her, and the only reason we did hire her, and quite frankly, the only reason she got the interview is we thought she was a police chief's daughter. That wasn't the case. And now looking back on it, this 22-year-old Katie who walked in my office for an interview, she wasn't. I really believe God put her there for a purpose.
Jamie is an outgoing guy. He's sharp, but Jamie always had these intense kind of ups and downs. He could be incredibly unreliable sometimes, just off doing his own thing, or he was just on it, really super engaged.
So after winning in 2010, shortly thereafter, I started my own political consulting company. And at this point, I thought I was maybe in the clear on some of the things I'd started doing just a little bit. But a couple years into it, it just I guess a pattern of deceit really started to develop in my life. Outside of hiding things from my wife in terms of my drinking problem and just putting work always ahead of her, and I was embezzling money from one of my clients, and what I thought, again, it was most of it didn't go for me. I have a pretty boring life, doing stuff to meet payroll and stuff like that. I was really good at politics, terrible at running a business.
Jamie had a way of just having these dark circles under his eyes when things were not good, and they were definitely present. But he called me and asked me to come and meet him, which wasn't out of the ordinary, but he said that he wanted to tell me what was going on. And so I immediately was worried, thinking that something maybe was up with his health, but ultimately he confessed to me what had been going on and told me that he was in a lot of trouble, going to turn himself in to the feds, and that probably going to face jail time, and it was awful.
I was at a Kinko's, and I was making copies of some fraudulent activity, we'll just say, was going on, and this was the first Saturday or first time ever that I missed my son play soccer, and I was doing it because I had to cover up some of my stuff. And I'll never forget this woman next to me. She didn't know how to use a copying machine, and she kept asking me for help, and I just exploded on her. And I'll never forget the look in her eyes, and it was like I could see myself through her eyes and who she was looking at, and I just could not believe who I'd become. And that was the exact moment where I stopped. I stopped everything I was doing wrong, walked out, and was like, I'm going to turn myself in. I can't continue this anymore. And that really was the beginning, the turning point of my life, where I'd had enough. I know deep down somewhere there's a good person in here, and we're going to find him again.
At that time, he lived on the east side, and when all of this happened, he told me that he was going to be moving in with his family on the west side. And so I said, well, seems like good a time as any for you to start coming to church with me. And I remember as clear as day, he laughed and said, I'm about the last person that God wants to see coming to church.
After that initial conversation with Katie, I turned myself into the feds. News is all over me. It's like, being hounded by the press trying to find me was just not a fun spot to be in, and I felt really isolated. And Katie called me one Sunday. You guys, I think, had just started doing your series on Jonah, and running from God. And like in true Katie form, she's like, I had mentioned previously, like she was put in my life, 12 years ago to be there for me at this moment. She shined in my moment of need. She called me up and said, there's a series in church. You have to promise me you'll come next week and give it a try.
And I just remember being in the seats, just crying next to my husband and my parents, like thinking God is literally talking to Jamie. He came, and the first time that I got to stand next to him at a service, the sermon was about the prodigal son, and he grew up Catholic and told me afterwards that, what a cool thing that people during his hardest, darkest time would not turn from him, but be reaching out to him. And so many people at church too that were hearing his story and reaching out to him and just there for him as he was going through this.
I'll never forget our first huddle meeting. So the guys walk in, they don't know each other, right? So we everybody meets each other and we sit down and I start talking about, hey, we're gonna go on this 30-week journey of, we're gonna read the Bible, we're gonna do some talking. And so I gave Jamie the Bible, the Huddle Bible, and he opens it, and literally he says, he looks up at me, he looks back at the Bible, and he looks at all the guys, and he goes, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna get out of this. and all the guys laughed, and I think he wasn't alone.
It was a great experience, going through, reading the Bible together, talking about, how we felt about it, and just kind of growing as a group and growing as men in faith was something I never thought I would do in my wildest dreams. And yeah, I'm waking up, at 6 a.m. to go meet these guys for breakfast and talk about this stuff. It was great.
He showed up, he did the reading, and then he came back the next week, and we were talking about it, and he opened up the Bible, the Huddle Bible that I gave him, and he said, hey, I want to show you guys something. I didn't know what in the world I was getting myself into, but Jesus said that he came to seek and to save the lost, and that's me.
Yeah, he went all in, I think January 2nd of last year, the I think Thursday night all in that we had at church, and it was incredible. It was so cool.
I'll never forgive David for this. He stops it. He's bringing people in the pool. There are probably like 20 of us, and he singles me out in there and starts saying, this guy's done a lot of bad things in his life in front of everybody. And I'm still new to this, turning myself in and turning my life around thing. And
it literally felt like just the washing away of the old Jamie. And just every conversation I have with him now, he's talking to me about what God is doing in his life, and it's almost shocking because it's like, here's this guy that I've known for a big long portion of my life, and he's just a completely different person. It's beautiful.
My purpose in life is to help people that were in my situation, that were they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. It's wrong, it's illegal, whatever they're thinking, that there is a way out, and that way out is through Jesus. It's time for me to give back and be there for somebody who might be going through something similar that I was going through, and be that hand that lifts them up like Katie was for me, like my parents were and have continue to be for me, and like this church was for me.